Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Carly Stevens. I'm the author of the Tanyuin Academy series, and this is English Nerd. So it's been a little while since I've done a coffee talk. I just have water this time around because I've already had a ton of coffee this morning. It's a snow day, which meant that I could have a very leisurely morning doing different tasks that I'd been putting off. And so one of those, I guess, is filming this video. I've been feeling a little bit nostalgic about the Tanyuin Academy series, and so I thought for today's coffee talk I would literally just chat with you guys and talk about just kind of do a retrospective of what it was like to write the series, where a lot of the ideas came from, some of the Easter eggs that are in there, what the whole process was like, and some things that I have not talked about on the channel at all. So yeah, hopefully you guys have read the Tanyuin Academy series, or at least you're familiar with it if you've been around the channel. So when I talk about certain things, they won't be a huge spoiler. There will be some spoilers in this, I'm sure, but I was just planning on talking to you as though you were a friend who was kind of obsessed with the Tanyuin Academy series, so you would be interested to know all the ins and outs. Yeah, so it's February 2022 as I record this, which means that I've been on YouTube for about 4 years. The reason that I started this YouTube channel in the first place is to build an author platform, essentially to prepare for the release of Firian Rising, which I thought would come out about a year after I started the channel. And my author videos have not been the most popular on the channel. It's been mostly the more scholarly videos, which is fine. I understand why, especially in 2020 when everybody went into lockdown and there was so much distance learning going on. I know those videos were helpful for a lot of people, which is wonderful, but I wanted to just return to the reason that I did this, or at least the catalyst for starting. I mean, I definitely had some teacherly information to pass along as well, and that's Firian Rising. So many of you know, again, if you are a fan of the series, that I started this book when I was in high school. I was 17, and it wasn't called Firian Rising at the time, and I didn't think it'd even be YA. I thought it was going to be just fantasy. The characters were a tad older for the majority of the series. Well, it wasn't a series then. I had gotten to what ended up being about right there in the draft. And Firian was 20, I think, and so I just ended up aging people down a little bit so I could make it YA and speeding up the pace of things, and that kind of thing. But yeah, the world I had in my mind for a very long time. I actually have the first picture that I drew of the map of the world. So I wanted to share that with you guys. It's in this kind of sketchbook that I barely sketched in at all because that's not my favorite medium. But I have, just trying to keep everything intact here. See, there it is. So it started with some continents that we really don't go to in the series, and then it expanded to the part that you're more familiar with if you have read the book. And if you notice, it's right after Christmas 2001 when I drew that. So that would have made me 14, I think. So this world has been around for ages. I remember being in high school and asking if people wanted to name like an island or something. So I don't remember now, unfortunately, who named some of these islands, but it was some friends in high school. I don't think I would have had the She and Sharb Isles be part of the world unless somebody else kind of helped me out. And that's been true throughout the whole series. I've outsourced different names, and there are all these tiny Easter eggs that have to do with my own personal life that I don't know if anybody really cares about. But for example, the Calthwaites obviously are super important. You have Jory and Addie Calthwaite. Kieran is a Calthwaite as well. He's just kind of from a different, he's been multiple times removed from the other Calthwaite boys. And that name was one that I found when I was 14, yet again, because it was the first time that I went to England. I was 14. It was in February, I think. And we visited a family near the border of Scotland. It was really far north in England. They have a sheep farm. And I just had such a good time there. It was a pretty life-changing trip, all in all, for a young me who was already really into English literature and English history and things like that. So I looked on a map and got close to the little hamlet that they lived in, and looked at some of the place names around, and the place names ended up being the last names of the main characters of the first book that I wrote, which is all about Shane and Mari, who are mentioned in the series as being the founders of Breathnam. So I wrote a whole book when I was 15, mostly about them, and Shane's last name is Calthwaite, named for a little town, and Mari's last name initially is Brampton, and that is another place name near where our friends lived. So yeah, there's so many little pieces of myself in this. And I know that it's not a perfect book. It does have, I've gotten better since I wrote the first one, which is good. I mean, everybody should improve. Your best book should hopefully be your most recent one. But gosh, I was so proud of Firian Rising, and I can see those little crumbs. I can even tell in some cases what I was teaching at the time or what I was reading at the time. So, for example, toward the end of the story, I remember I was teaching Crime and Punishment for the second time. And it's one of my all-time favorite books, Crime and Punishment by Dostoevsky. I don't think you can see it from here. Maybe you can see those nice hardcovers there. The red one is Crime and Punishment. And I love the way that Dostoevsky shows Raskolnikov's inner turmoil and the murder that he commits and everything. It's so hauntingly relatable, and it forces you to reflect on what you are capable of and the possibility of redemption for everyone. And that was so impactful for me. I'm sure if you've read the series, then you know that Firian is also a really dark character who's a pretty terrible person through a lot of the series. And of course he kills some people, and the way that it's written, I can tell that there's some Crime and Punishment in there. I regret nothing, but it's definitely there. I can also tell in the wedding scene, for example, in Into the Unreal, that I was in the middle of reading the Raven Cycle, just because of some of the details that I pointed out. They're not details that I would have pointed out otherwise. I can tell when I was reading Fahrenheit 451. I just all kinds of stuff is in there. So yeah, Firian Rising. Just look at how beautiful that book is. I know it's been years, but golly, it's crazy to think now that this is not the only book that I have out. But Into the Unreal came out about 2 years ago in April. 2 years ago in April, it was the most low-key release of all time. And I was a little concerned about how people were going to take the direction of Into the Unreal, because it does get so dark. But generally speaking, the feedback has been good. When I was in high school, I didn't get through a whole draft or anything. I ended up having to rewrite like 150 pages of this this deal to make it work. But I had planned for the end of, like, the finale of Into the Unreal. That's about as far as I had gotten in my thought process. So I knew where it was headed, largely because when I was a senior, I think, in high school when Revenge of the Sith came out, episode 3, which, everybody loves. I actually thought it was fine because my expectations were very low after episodes 1 and 2 of Star Wars. So I enjoyed it, but I thought, gosh, what a lost opportunity. Some of these ideas in the prequels are so good, and the execution is so famously horrible, particularly in episodes 2 and 3. And so you can see, if you're paying attention, that there's definitely some influence. What would happen if I sort of redid some of those ideas, like the hostage situation and the negative character arc, and so yeah, that's what I did. By the way, the very first scene that I ever wrote in Firian Rising was the fight between Firian and Tiev in that round room. I had just seen The Matrix for the first time, and I thought, how cool would it be to have a fight scene that had that limitlessness to it. And so I wrote that scene, not even thinking that it would be attached to a book, and it was from that the Unreal sort of started to take shape and make sense, and then I started writing the actual book sort of around that scene. These changed so much, these books. Like, Into the Unreal was actually going to start with Firian on the island of Torith already, helping out with the fight, because I wanted the first scene to be really similar to the first scene in Firian Rising. If you look at Into the Unreal, there's a scene, the first scene with him on the island, he is sneaking up on his elbows to look over this ridge and observe the pirate compound below, and that's almost exactly what it says, what he does when he's 11. He's not looking at a pirate compound, but he's looking at a mountain ghost in the Unreal. But then I realized I really needed to flesh out some things before that, and so that ends up being, I don't even know, like 100 pages in or something to the, oh yeah, there it is. Chapter 12 was going to be chapter 1 originally of Into the Unreal. Gosh, as soon as I finish just rambling on for this coffee talk, I know that I'm going to remember all kinds of random stuff, just because so much random stuff went into these books. I'm sure if you're a writer, then you understand that there are pieces of you, yes, in the characters, but there are pieces of your life in the sets, and in, you can tell what you were reading or what you were doing or what you were thinking at that time of your life. It's almost like this still. I remember hearing something that Stephen King said. He doesn't really go back and reread his books. It's that sort of encapsulates where he was at that time of his life. And I get that more now that I have a few different books out. But yeah, so some Easter eggs, some promised Easter eggs. I gave you a couple, I guess. There's the Calthwaite thing and all of that. But Bard, for example, is a bit of an Easter egg as well. You don't get to meet most of his family in the finished series. There was a scene in the original Firian Rising which had so many more points of view. It just was muddy and messy and insane. But you actually got to go home with Bard in an original draft and meet all of his siblings. He's one of 6, and his parents and everything. The way that I chose the names for his siblings was well, it was a variety of things, but one of the ways that I chose the names for his siblings was through Shakespeare. So Elsie, his second youngest sister, is actually Elsinore, which is the name of the castle in Hamlet. I chose the name even before I was obsessed with Hamlet. I hadn't even really read it at that point, but I thought Bard, of course he's going to have some Shakespearean named siblings. So when we go to Endurin in a future book, which is going to happen, then you'll see that most of the names are they kind of fall into a few different categories, but one of them is that there's a tiny little Shakespearean bent to it. Not with all the names, that would be crazy, but with some of the names, the last names tend to go with whatever job they historically had. So tannery, they were tanners. His Bard's father still is a tanner. Yeah, so let's see, Firian Rising into the Unreal. I got to get more maps as time went on, which it's been just so fun. We have the world map at this point and the city map as well. So my janky drawing became this very nice professional looking version. Now, part of me wants to go back to this person that I hired and add some more places, because in the Tanyuin Academy stories, once I started kind of expanding the world with additional stuff, I realized I went to more places, and investigated more spots. So you have Hinter up here in the snowy mountains, for example, and that's not listed here at all. Yeah, I keep, if you're wondering why there are all these little papers in my books, I keep the stuff that I got on release day, the notes or the just the pieces of encouragement that I've gotten for that book when it came out. Yeah, I feel like I'm running out of steam, but how can that possibly be? I'm probably just tired. I got up super early yesterday and today, but yesterday I woke up before my alarm, which goes off at 5, mind you, 5 o'clock in the morning. Why would I get up before my alarm? I don't know. My word. Yeah, so probably the book that I'm proudest of all the ones that I've written, which are this series, the Tanyuin Academy stories, and I have the pen name Anne Harrison, the Christmas romances. Currently I'm working on Laertes, the Hamlet retelling, and I'm getting close to the end. My goal is to finish this month, but we'll see. I'll get some writing in today at least, because it's no day. But probably the book that I'm proudest of is Kingdoms on Fire, and it's not just because it's super chunky, although I'm like not so secretly proud of how thick it is. I feel like so many indie books are super skinny, which is perfectly fine. Laertes is going to be a skinny book. So is the Tanyuin Academy stories is really small. And it makes more financial sense to do it that way. But there's something about having this hefty, 600-pager, nearly anyway, well, 550 in the hardcover, that I'm just really, really proud of. There's so much here, and it has the best reviews and everything. Firian Rising has pretty good reviews, and they just increasingly get better over time. So that's pretty awesome. One of the cool things about being an author is just being able to look back at your younger self, and think, how far you've come. How far have I come since 2001 when I sketched out that map just for kicks? It's pretty far. I have all these books out. That's a little crocheted Firian that one of my students gave to me. It's, I'm really lucky to be able to have done what I've done, and I have big plans for the future as well. I want to have a whole shelf worth of my own stuff, all of which is hopefully really good. Gosh, I'm trying to think what other. I was going to talk about some other stuff. Of course, now I can't really think of it. I mean, there are a million pages, so I don't really know. But I am really, really excited for the audiobook of these to come out. Audio has been just my love the past several years. My brother-in-law introduced me to the library audio app, and I've just been so grateful ever since. And I've listened to, it has to be over 100 books at this point, and just, it's good stuff. It's good stuff. All right, well, I guess that's all. It's not all though. Okay, let me just think for a moment. I'm sleepy. How are you doing? Good? Cool. Oh, right. I was going to mention so I've done some book signings, right, with Firian Rising in particular. And it was at, I think, my second book signing when I'd only had this one book out that I came up with a title for Kingdoms on Fire, and so I have that. I keep everything pretty much. I've thrown away some drafts, just redundant drafts of my stuff, but I have so many here. I have all of these from before. I think one of these is the original. The original Firian Rising draft. It's called the Tanyuin Mind. That is not what the final version is called, and it's just not as good. But that's as it should be. I mean, when I'm 17 versus 30 years old, it should be night and day, really. Okay, I guess I'll sign off. I'm just feeling all happy about these books. So if you like hardcovers, these are available in hardcover, paperback, ebook, and soon audio as well with Jake Ruddle. So definitely check that out. Order it for your library if you don't want to pay yourself. I'm not going to tell anybody. And just if you're a writer, then leap into it. Fall in love with your characters, explore your world, really take the time to get to know it and become the biggest fan of your own stuff. I mean, I have candle scents, I have the maps, I have mugs, which I'm not going to unearth at the moment, but mugs with the different covers on them, and I have a cinnamon candle just because it reminds me of Bard, and I've tried to make candied lemon peel like they have at the wedding, and it didn't turn out the way that it ought to taste. But just love on your stuff, and that love should shine through in your writing and help other people to be immersed in the stories as well. That's something that I've heard consistently with the reviews that I do have, which are not all that many. So if you've read the book and you haven't reviewed it, please do. But I hear over and over again that the world is really unique and immersive, and that you can kind of get lost in the world. Like I definitely have. I'm planning to return to it after I finish writing Laertes, which I'm super excited about. I love, but I'm going back to the world of the Tanyuin Academy series with different characters, different places, more details to come. But yeah, it's a fun ride, even though I put a lot of stress myself, and I always have this massive to-do list in the back of my mind when I really should be focusing on teaching English and grading papers and things like that. All right, well, thank you for listening to me ramble on, and stay safe, friend. Keep writing, and you also can have this whole shelf worth of books that you really love. All right, that's it. Like this video if you like it. Don't forget to subscribe for more English nerdy goodness, and I will see you on Monday.